Welcome to Tea with Tanya podcast. Every week, I'll be brewing up a perfect blend of public health stories, which will include maternal and reproductive health, career and academic advice, self-love, health, and wellness tips. Join me, your host, Tanya. I'm a public health professional working in maternal health. I'm a birth and postpartum doula, a placenta encapsulation specialist, and certified lactation counselor by day. And I'm your average tea-loving millennial and content creator by night. So pour yourself up a cup of tea and join me in the tea tasting room for your weekly dose of inspiration, where you are the center of our conversation. This podcast is here to serve you. So come take a sip with me and let's start promoting positive living together. Hi, Giana. Welcome back again to Tea with Tanya.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's been a morning. I don't think I've sat down until right this second. This is the first time I've sat down all day to talk to you.
You're not in the same boat because I've been going consistently and constantly. I don't know. It's been a day, but you know what? We are here and we are going to record. We're going to invite our listeners to the tea tasting room to talk about a topic that's very important and very near and dear to both of our hearts. I will say that we are equally as passionate, concerned, and just want to spread information to those of you listening here. So if you're new here, I am Tanya, your host, and this is our second series of the year where we are talking about everything maternal health. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about reducing maternal mortality here in the U.S. and, of course, abroad as well. Because if you hear an accent, I am from Antigua. So I definitely want to ensure that I am giving you guys information that's not just only here in the U.S., but also, you can utilize and get a better understanding of what things are globally. So before we get into today's episode, I'm going to give you a definition from the CDC about what maternal mortality is, so that you have an understanding, whether you're folding clothes, driving in the car, whatever you're doing when you're listening. You don't have to run to Google. You can just listen to what I'm saying here. It is from the CDC, so it is a reputable source. Maternal mortality is defined as the death of a woman during pregnancy, childbirth, or in the year after delivery due to complications related to her pregnancy. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, approximately 700 women die annually from causes related to pregnancy and childbirth in the United States alone. More so, 2/3 of these deaths are preventable. I'm going to say that last part. 2/3 of these deaths are preventable. Unfortunately, which is very unfortunate, maternal mortality disproportionately affects African American women. As an African American woman, we are 3 times more likely than white women to die from a pregnancy-related cause. This disparity is due in large part of a systemic racial discrimination, as we know, that leads to unequal access to healthcare and other social determinants of health, such as education and income risk level. So like what I mentioned earlier, pregnancy-related deaths, at least 2/3 of them are preventable. So Giana, I know I just said a bit of a mouthful. I probably was speaking fast. But I do want to ask, I know you know the stats. I know you know what maternal mortality is. But what do we think are some risk factors for maternal mortality?
Oh, gosh. Lots of other things that could be preventable, right? So we could see socioeconomic level contributing to that, poverty level contributing to that. Plenty of other factors like nutrition of a community, their access to quality care. That's a really big one because quality care, that doesn't exist everywhere, unfortunately.
Right.
Those factors can be remediated. Would it take time? Yes, but they can be remediated, but they are strong factors in what that mortality rate looks like. Low birth weight, preterm birth, all of it.
And then we have pre-existing conditions, different chronic medical conditions. We have maybe diabetes, hypertension. All these are other risk factors that can contribute, to the maternal mortality rate amongst pregnant women. All right. So Giana, explain to us who listen here in the tea tasting room, what is the role of healthcare systems in maternal mortality reduction? Like what role does these healthcare systems play when it comes to reducing maternal mortality.
What role are they supposed to play, or what role are they currently playing? Because those are two very different answers, right?
Listen, but I mean, go there, go right there. I get go right there. Let's spill that tea.
Let's talk about what the role that these health systems are supposed to play, right? Like health systems, okay, when we think about health systems, it's a system, okay? It's supposed to operate together with different pieces of it all operating like a well-oiled machine in order to sustain the health and well-being of a population. In this particular instance, we're talking about the maternal and birthing population. So these health systems, just to kind of give you a little bit of background on something that I did a deep dive on a while back, but briefly, health systems weren't a thing. It was mostly private practice. So you saw lots of private practice providers that had provider rights at a hospital. So the hospital would be an entity, and then there would be private practices. So in this case, we're talking private practice providers for pregnancy and birth. They would have rights to attend a birth at the hospital down the street because it's close to them, and then they're affiliated. They're affiliated with the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it used to primarily be, right? You hardly see private practice, particularly obstetricians, anymore, because these hospital systems, right, have swallowed up these private practices because, well, it makes more money. It's easier if the provider is affiliated and works for the hospital versus is affiliated with the hospital. Okay. And there's a lot of nuances that go along with that. I'm not going to go into that, but that's kind of where we're at today, right? We see these giant, large health systems, which have this large responsibility to keeping a population and a community healthy. Only the problem is it's just so large that we now have to focus on the business side of it and the policies and the protocol and the insurance and the liabilities and all of the malpractices and all of those things that go into legality, that we're almost making decisions not based on what's best for the patient, but what's best for business, what's best for, well, if we do this procedure, it's because, it has to be because X, Y, and Z. And if it doesn't fall under that, we're going to get, hit by insurance or something like that. There's always something, there's always a reason when it comes down to doing something or not doing something with a patient because of any of these policies or liabilities, because of the system.
Yeah. It almost takes away from what's more important, which would be the patient or the person who is seeking said treatment or said health care access. It's crazy. I'm talking to you and I'm getting upset, but you know what? I'm gonna try to keep my tone together because it just brought me back. You just think about so many different memories because
for sure.
I remember briefly last week's episode when I spoke about why I became a doula, and I would have mentioned, if you guys listen to that episode, if you have not, please do so.
Yes.
But I remember saying that, I remember when I became an advocate for my oldest sister, who at the time I didn't even know I was an advocate. She was 2021 weeks pregnant, and they were telling her, oh, you know what, you may have to, it's a 50-50 chance, so you should lean more towards a 50-50 that's negative. Again, like I mentioned, we're faith-based, and if we have a 50-50 chance, and let's try and see which side of the 50-50 we end up on. And I remember at the time she lives in Canada, so she was over here, and of course they have a great insurance in Canada. I can't necessarily, I don't know, they had great insurance, but luckily, of course, their insurance was able to cover the cost of her being in the hospital here in the US. But that was one of the other questions that they asked, and I forgot to mention that on that podcast, but that's besides the point. I remember them saying, oh, let's try to move towards terminating the pregnancy because you have a 50% chance of having this baby be alive. And the next question that they asked was, can we get your insurance so we can start putting it? And I'm saying, you see my sister looking so distraught, stressed. This is baby number one. Husband is in another country at the time because she only came to visit me. I'm younger, not at the time, didn't know anything about maternal health, nothing at all. I'm just being this naive little sister, speaking up for my sister. So, hearing you say these things is like, wow, when we think about it, sometimes we take away from actually providing care, but we're more focused on the business aspect of it. And it makes you wonder how many, which sometimes we know the number, sometimes we don't, how many women out here are in a position similar to what my sister was, just in general. Like, I'm pregnant now and I'm having a hard time, having access to prenatal care, which makes me think, how important is it for us to have prenatal care and access to even emergency or obstetric services? And the reason why I'm asking this question, because for me, I'm in my prime in my body stage for pregnancy. Whenever I get pregnant, I don't know when that's gonna be. I'm no Rihanna, but yet, but I'm in the process now where I'm realizing in my line of work that I need to be priming and preparing my body for pregnancy. Whether that's 5 or 10 years from now, either way, I'm still going to be considered a geriatric mother at this point in time, according to the quote unquote system. But explain to us and to those listening the importance of having access to prenatal care and even access to gynecologists or obstetric services.
Well, prevention is everything. When it comes to the medical system, the overarching factor is, do no harm, right? But then prevention, how can we prevent these things from happening? So prenatal, if you think about prenatal care, it is preventative because you're watching mom and baby, you're making sure the kicks are there, the right amount of hormones are there, like all the things, all the check boxes are essentially checked off, which is wonderful. So there's this thought that I can't remember who said this, but like you can't see inside the womb for a reason. So we're not meant to, see and kind of pick. And there's even some that would say too many preventative measures can lead us down to backpedaling and trying to undo what we were doing. And we, reach that 50-50 point. But anyway, having access to prenatal care and good quality prenatal care can catch so many things in mom and or baby that can dictate the outcome of the rest of pregnancy and then ultimately birth. And then even ultimately, I would say the first year of the newborn's life. For example, our old neighbor, their little boy had hypoplastic something in his heart. The left chamber of his heart did not operate at all. So they caught that in utero.
Oh.
And the good thing is that when she delivered and they had a full cardiac NICU team ready just in case baby needed support and assistance. And he did.
Uh-huh.
So imagine she didn't have that, right? They didn't catch that before, or she didn't have access to that. There's a chance that the early intervention that the baby needed wouldn't have been available because they didn't know. Same thing with blood pressure. Lots of people are informed on how to take blood pressure and what to look for in their own personal baseline. Some people don't know what to look for. So if they don't know what to look for, then they need that prenatal and that access in order to say, hey, BP's looking high. Let's work on getting it down. And if not, what can we do in order to address that to make sure that you and baby are okay in the end?
No, I agree. And I remember one time at work having, someone that I'm working with or someone that is a part of our program. Because I'm trying to be diplomatic here. I don't want to give away too much. But I say, guys, I love my job, honey. Part of my role at my job is to provide, education from childbirth, breastfeeding, all these different things, prenatal and postpartum. But then realizing that sometimes there are people who are on, let's say, baby number 9, or some people are on baby number 5, and they haven't, or some people are even like 5 months pregnant and I haven't even had one prenatal visit with a primary care physician because, one, lack of access, probably where they're living, or two, the cost. Because everything here is about, do you have insurance? Do you pay? It makes it difficult. And if I already know I don't have any money to even, sometimes I got to choose between food and prenatal care. I have to choose food. And especially if I have kids, I cannot choose my prenatal care. I cannot. That's not something that I can do. So when I think about that, is again, I think it's important. And I sometimes when I say this, I get so annoyed with myself because I'm like, the goal is for us to educate, empower. And when I say those two words, because I know these two words now are thrown around any old way in society right now for maybe for a viral post or just because I want to sound like, oh, I'm an empowering person. But it's like, no, when I realize that as a society, I don't care how rich you are or where you fall on that socioeconomic list or that poll, we don't know everything. I don't know everything. I'm still learning. I'm not a mother, so sometimes I feel like I shouldn't. It's hard. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, sometimes I feel like it used to be harder for me to tell a parent what to do because I'm like, here I am coming from. So I'm a doula. I'm a childbirth educator, but I've never experienced birth. I've experienced it through the lens of obviously clients and family members, but I have not experienced it through my own eyes. So sometimes it used to be difficult trying to educate people that I see. And then for me, I have a public health mind. Like sometimes, and I think it's a blessing, it's a curse, because I cannot watch anything without thinking something public health. Like, we have the people around here that you cannot watch a TV show or movie without a think piece. Like, for instance, that Rihanna performance, there's so many essays I've seen since Rihanna's Super Bowl performance. And I'm just like, in my mind at one point, side by side, I'm like, this is Rihanna. She's giving us what she always gives. So why are we surprised?
Right.
The only thing is she's giving us what she normally gives while being pregnant, which is a feat. Let's applaud that she's pregnant. She was there for 13 minutes nonstop, performed her hits. Like, what more? What more do we need?
Right. Right.
So for me, when I'm watching certain things, my public health mind, like, wow, we really have to be out here in the communities educating and empowering, because some of us just don't know. I saw a Instagram story. It might have been from you or someone else that I followed on Instagram. Again, going back to Rihanna, and what I'm trying to say is that when I saw her belly, I said, she's postpartum, but the shape is a bit funny.
It was nice and round.
It's given pregnancy, but you never want to tell somebody.
Right.
Yeah, it was nice and round. You never want to tell somebody what they are when they haven't said it yet. And I think I saw someone on Instagram say, "Oh, I was looking at her fundus and the length and everything," and they were saying, "Oh, it's about 32." I said, "Wow!" And then I said, "Wow, me, why didn't I think of that till after I saw that?" When I said, and then when I looked again, I said, "Yeah, that makes sense. We should be able to see that she was." But that's neither here nor there. That's just, I'm trying to say that it's important for us to be educated when it comes to pregnancy, even postpartum, and when it comes to reducing the maternal mortality, even postpartum, because the goal is to ensure that babies are living to at least their first birthday.
Yeah. I mean, it's bare minimum. Bare minimum.
Yeah. That goes into ensuring that the child lives to see their first birthday. I remember, I think September is Infant Mortality Awareness Month. So, the goal is making sure that it's not just, we have to make sure that these babies are seeing at least their first birthday. And then that's how I think they count the statistics. But because I feel like I'm just going around the bush. But I'm just trying to say that it's important for us to be educated from a prenatal standpoint on postpartum, knowing what resources are available for you in your community, because believe it or not, there are a lot of resources. Some that I didn't even know existed until I started my job. Some I still don't even, I know it's out there, but I haven't personally come across them. So I think when it comes to having prenatal care and access to these different things, there are doctors and even nurse practitioners and midwives who have private practice who are much more willing to accommodate, a mom who's in a lower economic status than someone who has great insurance. And even then, sometimes you have good insurance, you're not getting the care that you need.
Oh, no, for sure. I feel like this is the value of community birth work. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if you're like the CEO.
You must have been in my mind, because I was coming to ask you a question like that just now.
Oh, what's the question? Let's hear it. What is it?
No, go ahead. You go ahead. Like, the value, like how important, like how can we have innovative approaches to reducing maternal mortality, such as telemedicine or community health worker programs. So you're right on it. You're right, spot on.
Well, community birth work. I mean, I think it's like I'm blue in the face with the words community birth work. Like I just don't understand like the antagony from the system of like, oh, well, these people are uneducated. I just recently came across, someone sent me an article on the pros and cons of doulas from an L&D nurse that's on the internet. Okay. And it was talking about, like, I don't know if you saw like my review, but it was just so negative.
Yeah.
Well, they don't know enough. Their knowledge is limited. Well, first of all, clinically, we don't treat anything clinically. But I will tell you right now that patients cannot find information, or sometimes they cannot find information that their community birth worker has immediately.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for something. They're on Google. We talked about this in the last episode we did together. But community birth workers are so plugged in and embedded in the community that it's so much easier to access information when you have people who are in the community that are resourceful or a resource to filter into our patients and our clients in order for them to be more educated, in order for them to be more empowered. This should be something that hospital systems are grateful for. They should be grateful for
Mm-hmm.
community birth work because it's taking them out of their phone lines. Nobody's calling them all the time. It reduces their time with their patient, right? They only get 5-minute appointments anyway. Like, it reduces their time.
Okay.
They have community birth workers who are able to spend the time with them and give them culturally competent care because they know them. They have a relationship with them. That's important.
No, I agree. It is. And so explain, because I know I did it on the previous episode, but briefly explain, when you're talking about community birth workers, and I know you said a mouthful. Again, for the people in the back who didn't hear, come to the front of the tea tasting room if you are behind sipping on your tea a little bit too loud. But the importance of community birth workers. I just recently learned a term on a training the other day, community doulas. I'm like, community doulas? That wasn't something that I've never heard that until I was on that training the other day. They mentioned community doula. So let's reiterate again the importance of having a doula. And the reason why I'm asking you to reiterate, to emphasize that I know, and this is my personal opinion, unpopular opinion maybe, I know right now doulas are becoming more and more popular, which is great, which is amazing. But just like with anything, everything becomes like who can, commercial success, or it has been commercialized, and all we all about, oh, let's make this money, or this is the money, we can make X amount of money from being a doula, which again, of course, some people are only doulas, some people have other things going on as far as other forms of income. Of course, you need to be paid, because let me tell you this, guys, it's hard work, HEART, hard or hard work. It is a lot that goes into building your resource bank. I can tell you that much, because I'm still working on the resources, and it's taking my life one day at a time. Because it's, because we want it. When we talk about having resources for you, it takes a lot. So of course you need to be paid on these different things. But for me, and I know for you, I'm gonna just speak for you, Giana. Our goal has always been to ensure that we are educating, empowering, and making sure that people know what decision they need to make, and all these different things. Is not necessarily about the money. Granted, I'm not saying that that's the case with other doulas either, but sometimes, I've seen stuff on social media, and for me, I can tell when sometimes people are doing things not from the heart, but because, it's the cool thing to do. Let me go make a quick buck over here. And then sometimes the patient or your client may end up missing out on the actual education and whatever they need as far as support before they go into their birth. So let's reiterate again the importance of having a doula from prenatal and even to postpartum. That's how we can help to reduce the maternal mortality, because I know we do that.
Yes. So it helps the family be more plugged into what their specific and individual needs are. Having a doula isn't just, because I want to go I want to go unmedicated. That's one reason, one very big reason, but there are plenty of other reasons where doulas can help provide you with information that is individualized. And I think the key is that one of the cons that in that article she said that it's because doulas are unregulated. They're not a regulated scope. And I find that actually a benefit. And the reason why is because doulas are not answering to anyone but the family. Their responsibility and their loyalty is to the family and the interest of the family and maintaining the integrity of their care. Period. They're not regulated by policies and things that they can or cannot recommend. If a family is looking for something, the doula will help them find it. No question. Obviously, if it's for the better of the family and it's nothing, like causing harm intentionally or anything like that. But the loyalty is to the family, not to anyone else. And when you are seeking care within the hospital system, it is important to have someone that's in your corner that only answers to you. So you get that individualized support. You get your hand held if that's what you need, all the way through prenatal. They can help you catch things if they're easier to access, right? Like, say, like, I'm your doula. You can text me. You know that at 7 p.m., if you called your obstetrician's office,
It's closed.
I mean, they're closed. They're closed. You send a message in your chart, 2 to 3 days turnaround, maybe. I'm not lying. Like, I've seen that in a chart, like, for myself. Like, it's been 2 to 3 days, and I had a question.
For me right now, it's been 2 weeks. I'm literally waiting on a response to my OB. Well, my gynecologist, guys. I mean, may I make that clear?
I know, right? Like, you better not be. You're about to get some DMs over there. People guessing like Riri. We don't understand the value in having easy and quick access with having a doula, because you can text them, and while we may not have all the answers, doulas are super resourceful. We will find it. We will ask all the people, we connect, we network with each other. We're a team. I've never met you in person, but you know that I've asked you questions on text message. Like, what do you think about this? Like, what's your input? We're working together, but our loyalty is for the client. And that's not something that you can say without community birth work.
Yeah, and it goes along with us trying to reduce these little, I don't want to say these little, but as a community birth worker, we are working to ideally reduce the maternal mortality rates.
Right.
It may seem like a small feat to some, because I've seen some people dismiss the role of a doula, a birth partner, whatever it may be, someone working in the maternal field. At one point, someone said to me a few years ago, oh, there's no money in maternal and child care or maternal and child health. And I remember because at the time, I'll be honest, I was much younger and I was easily influenced. I was like, oh, I want to have this particular life where I'm making X amount of money.
Yes.
I mean,
I've been there.
that's everybody's goals. But I just kept coming back to, I tried to leave maternal health, but I kept coming back over and over. And I say, God is telling me at this point, my child, what are you doing? Like, you see, you keep going out into the sea, you can't swim. And I keep rescuing you and pulling you back to maternal health. And you keep trying to get away. So again, working in, some may think there is no money. Right now, there's money everywhere. It's not even, it's just besides the point. When you have a passion for something and you realize that these numbers, then as a Black woman living in this country, I'm thinking, wow, I even think back to my sister. Anything could have happened to her while she was having an emergency C-section with my niece. This, because they were lingering towards the negative aspect of that 50%. So what would have happened if they decided that I'm not in the mood? They could have cut something. It's just so many things I think about that could have happened to her, even to other family members who've gone on to have kids who have had difficult or complicated births as well. It took me texting them. I mean, I've had friends who have been their unofficial doula. They texting me while they're in labor. I'm texting them, oh, they're going to the doctor. What question should I ask? And I'm giving them a whole list, because you need to be thorough. You need to be, and you need to ensure that you are having your questions answered so you can have a healthy pregnancy. Even now, when I'm telling, I just adopted this whole priming my body for pregnancy thing, and I'm telling other friends, we have to prime our bodies for when it's time to get pregnant. We have to educate ourselves when it's time for us when we are pregnant, so we can know what to do. We can know how to advocate, because even I saw a post, which we knew this, and I always go back to Serena Williams. That's my girl, greatest ever. That's the goal. When she had her daughter Olympia, she's so cute too. But anyway, and I'm thinking, because I was watching her, she had a documentary on HBO, and she was going through the journey of pregnancy and then returning to the court after having a baby XYZ. And I remember her telling the story. And I think sometimes, for those of you listening here, you probably, even if you're not as passionate or as interested or even have a child, you've probably heard the Serena Williams story when she was telling the doctor, because prior to that, and I'll just give a quick backstory. Prior to that, she was injured. I think she had broken her foot on a glass or something, but she had a lot of blood clot issues, health issues, which is why she had to stay away from the game for a year or two. Can you tell I'm a real big Serena Williams fan? I just know all her business that she told me. But so she had these complications. So she I guess would have educated herself to know what to expect in any given health circumstance, and she I remember they were telling the nurse and the doctors that she felt something and they kept ignoring her. Oh, you just had a baby, you just had a C-section or whatever. They kept ignoring her over and over and over. And it took her husband, I think, probably having to, as we like to say in Antigua, make noise, which means making noise, but we just speak it in dialect. Because we'll be like, oh, no, don't let me, sometimes if we go somewhere, I'm going to have to make noise in here. I'm going to have to make noise in here because you're not listening to me. So I got to get loud. I got to get out of character, you know?
I love that. Yeah.
I can't believe I just did that. But it took her husband, getting loud for them to actually even pay her attention. You're talking about this woman who can even buy a wing of a hospital, okay? And she was a black woman. She was just another person that was there to give birth, and they weren't paying attention to her. And I think about it, who knows their body better than yourself? Sometimes we don't, but I mean, you can tell when something is out of whack within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how much of a health guru or how in tune you are, you can always tell when something is wrong. So I often think about that time as it relates to when we talk about maternal mortality. Who knows what could have happened? And I think back to, of course, my girl Beyonce. Hey, when she said she had preeclampsia, she had hypertension, toxemia, all these different things. Again, of course, these are people who have money. They can probably buy me a million times, but to see that, they had these pregnancy related complications, some were being ignored. So when you think about those who are lower down on the pole, I mean, I say regular people, but I mean, they are regular people too, but I understand, they have a particular status. So we look to them as, because I'm of this thing these days. If you're not in my tax bracket, I'm not concerned about you. Like, I don't have the time. But I'm being honest. Like back in the day, I used to be, oh, let me see what this person is doing as a celebrity. If you're doing something that I can't be bothered with, you're too rich for me. I can't. But when it comes to certain health issues, you think about that. So I'm saying all this to say, because I'm pretty sure I'm long-winded. But in addressing the disparities in maternal health, when we think about marginalized communities, like the impact of, let's say, poverty or lack of education and even some cultural attitudes towards maternal health, how can we make that shift? But the reason why I'm saying that, because coming from someone who, I grew up in the Caribbean. I'm from Antigua, and I'm gonna just draw a reference, and then I'll let you answer that question. Like, for instance, safe sleep. Right now, the child is supposed to only sleep on his back until at least the first year of life. That's what I've come to learn in my line of work and all these different things. Even if the child can roll over, you always put that child on its back. If they can roll over back and forth by themselves, then it's fine if they're on their tummy. And then you have to wait until 6 months for a child to introduce solids. These are things that I have had to learn. But growing up in Antigua, by the time you're 3 months, we're giving you some cornmeal porridge, creamery, like you're getting like, your food. Sometimes you might be eating, we have this thing called fungi. You may get a piece of fungi in your mouth. I can remember my grandma used to tell us, oh, cornmeal porridge is going to make you strong. So to this day, I still make it at least every week. But, I think about that. I think about we're putting that baby on its tummy because, you know what, it's the best. That's the best way they're going to sleep. I remember I have a friend who had a baby recently and she posted something on her status and the baby was on his tummy. And I said, no, the baby needs to be on his back. And I remember her saying, well, oh, this is the best way that he sleeps, or he sleeps through the night. Again, lack of probably education or, again, certain cultural attitudes. Because for me, if I didn't come into this line of work, or I wasn't as passionate, or if I wasn't exposed to certain things, you best believe my child was going to be on his tummy. You best believe I was going to introduce this type of food to my child at 3 months old. I'm like, okay, you're kind of old, you're chunky, you can get some porridge. We turned out fine. That's just the mentality. Right. I'm being honest. That's just the mentality that I had before I got into this, for sure, line of work. So I think about other people. I remember talking to someone and she's telling me she's mixing formula with something. And I was like, oh my lantern. Like, I was like, oh my goodness. So all these are just education. So how, when it comes to addressing these disparities, how maybe talk about how the lack of education or even poverty and our cultural attitudes have an impact even on our own maternal health. Because sometimes we tend to blame, I don't want to say blame, but we will tend to cast blame on our healthcare providers when something goes wrong. It's warranted, but I'm just saying, how do we play a role, or how do our circumstances, our situation, environment play a role in, maternal health as well?
Yeah. I for sure want to make a comment on the cultural aspect of it, because who said that because cultural practices that are different from westernized practices, who ever made those differences less educated? And that's kind of like where I feel like the Western world really does try and like take over and be some sort of like authority over the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
When just because this is what Western world culture practices, and these are our findings, and this is our standard of education and standard of care, which is interesting in itself. But who's to say that another small country, what they're doing is not educated because it's not along the lines of the Western world? That makes them uneducated. These are their cultural practices. These are their values. These are things that they've been doing for centuries.
Speak on it.
Who in the world has made this the gold standard, right? Lived experience matters. And I'm all for evidence-based, but evidence-based sometimes does not take into consideration cultural practice, cultural values, the importance of maintaining these things. Just because our standard is over here, that doesn't make their standard of care any less, because they value different things than the Western world does.
No, that is true.
So I'm laying that out there. It's just not fair. As someone who was put to sleep on their tummy, I slept on my tummy, right? Because my mom slept on her tummy, and like that's how all of her siblings slept on their tummy. Like everyone slept like that. So these are learned things, but obviously there's always room to learn. But coming back to your initial question, what is contributing to that? Why is there some level of, why does this poverty level make them more predisposed to some of these instances? How can that make an impact? Cost is a big thing. If anything looks like it's going to cost something that can better be used to a plate on the table, the plate on the table with food on it is going to supersede then that seeking of care, right? So, for example, like hospital childbirth classes can be $100+ Okay. A hospital class, $100+ for a class that is tailored to you and your, whatever you're looking for in a holistic approach that takes time and individualized, fine. But a hospital class, you are a community hospital and you're charging $150 for childbirth class, please miss me, because you're serving a community. I'm talking about a couple in my mind that I know were charging that much. The community that they were plopped in the middle of was not about to pay $150 for a childbirth class.
Right.
I'll tell you that right now, because all of, if not most of that population were on food stamps. They were needing cash aid, WIC. They're not going to spend $150 on a childbirth education class. If they can avoid a copay, they're going to avoid a copay, because putting food in their mouths and their babies' mouths and their kids' mouths, transportation, gas money, all of that is going to supersede a copay. So those things are really, really big barriers. What I was finding when I was back in my old community here, I haven't had the time to dive in, but I know it's awful here. But it's a factor. Like they're going to find out what's important. If I only had $30 in my hand, I have 2 kids. Okay. If I only had $30 in my hand and I felt like I had to go to the doctor and it's a $20 copay, but my kids need to eat dinner, that $30 is going to go towards putting food on the table for my kids. I'm not going to the doctor. It's a big barrier.
Yeah, it is a barrier. And I've had people, who've said to me, even from back home, up here you get, as you say, you mentioned, you get WIC, you get food stamps. Even that is a barrier too. Because I've had a situation where I know someone who, because they started working 2 more hours more a week, they got their food stamp taken away. Mind you, this is someone with multiple kids who needs the help, and she just started working 2 extra hours a week, just again to make a little bit more money. Because even if you're having these weekend foods, you need more. Like, and the way how this world is running right now, I need it too. Okay, like, but would have gotten that. So there's so many other barriers, especially when you're living in poverty, you're living in other communities, like it could be even rural communities where the access to different things is just sometimes non-existent. You're having to drive 2 more cities across where you are just to get care. Like, think about these, but that's going to be a whole different podcast. Guys, I'm in school and I'm taking a rural health class situation, so I think I'm this queen of rural health. But it puts things,
It's
yeah,
true.
it
It
puts
puts
things,
things in perspective.
it does. So sometimes we sit and think, oh, this person want to be on wake or food staff and all these different things. Even that is a barrier too. Even that is a barrier
Yes.
to our maternal health system as well. I'm seeing that there's money being spent from when it comes to the government, money being spent on things that, granted, maybe they don't need to be spent on. Don't get me wrong, but then why is the maternal mortality rates that high? And then when you think about the United States, because I'm going to be transparent again, growing up, guys, I was born in England, but still, Antigua is my home. That's where I grew up since I was a little girl. But I'm just saying this, growing up, sometimes the bar was, if not necessarily England, the bar was the United States. Like, we saw the US as this, how should I describe it? Like, the way, I don't want to say the way out because life is beautiful in Antigua, but it's like, go and get your tertiary education in the US. Even if you live there, it's just great. It's much better, quote unquote, in the US. Like, my dad always referred to the US as the good, the bad, and the ugly. It has its good, it has its bad, and it has its ugly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I remember taking a maternal and child class, and when we saw the chart or the list of where maternal mortality ranked, and saw that the United States at the time, probably still is, was like literally at the bottom of the list, probably second to last. So I'm just gonna say bottom of the list. And I was like, wow, a country that has all these different technology, like, it was just mind blowing to me
Mind blowing.
to see that a country that we come to get better healthcare. It's just not, I mean, granted, I'm not taking away from what resources there is. I don't want to take away from that. But then when you're looking at their maternal mortality rates,
Specifically, yes. Yeah.
why a woman dying, like, it just doesn't make any sense at the hands of what? And again, like I would have read earlier, some of these deaths were preventable.
Mm-hmm. The April Valentine one, I think we talked about that briefly last time, but that was,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the backstory on that, that was because a provider that had already multiple complaints against that provider.
Mm.
They were still providing care.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I think that's why it's important for you to know what resources is available for you. Don't be afraid to ask. Think about your community birth workers. Like, we are essentially here to serve you. And I know that's in part of my intro, but we are here to serve you because some know from a firsthand experience what it's like to not have the quality care that you need and that you deserve. And then the numbers are telling. And sometimes when you Google these things, they have a way of hiding these statistics. I don't know how they do it, but they have a way. It's like the algorithm. They show you what they think you want to see, or the things that they think you should see.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you mentioned rural, I moved to what is considered rural over here.
Hmm.
Driving just in my city, I don't even want to call it a city. It feels like a town, but whatever. It's driving in this area. There is no hospital.
Mm.
The closest L&D unit, I want to say, is about 35 minutes away from me.
Wow.
So to say that a maternity care desert, and these are deserts, okay, like March of Dimes puts out this report on maternity care desert. I encourage everyone to go look at it and see if you are living in a desert. I'm currently living in a desert. The grade, they have a grading system. The grade level that my area is a D.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
And on top of the fact that these hospitals and L&D units and birth centers or whatever are 35 minutes away, the public transportation system here is non-existent pretty much. So if someone has no transportation, going back to the living in poverty, how does that impact you? Is there reliable transportation? Sometimes there's not.
Yeah,
And that's the reality.
that's a great point.
That's the reality. They can't hop in the car and just drive 35 minutes away. Like, no. And then even if that wasn't the case, they have no car, where is the transportation to take them anywhere?
No, that is true, and that these are all factors that we have to factor in when it comes to prenatal care, prenatal access, the access. Like, again, everything I think would essentially boils down to the lack of access, and then I'm going to say lack of advocacy, because again, a lot of these deaths can be preventable. We think about chronic diseases, the hypertension, the diabetes, were these being treated during pregnancy? These are questions I have to ask myself. Were these things being treated during pregnancy? People who are, let's say, for me, guys, I'm 32. I can't remember if I just said that out loud, but I'm 32. I am now probably considered a geriatric patient or mother at this point. That's what they say. The statistics, or these different, or what do I want to say, prestige sites, they'll say I'm a geriatric parent, or I will be. And I remember growing up back in the day, if you were, let's say, 40 something, it was normal.
Normal, yeah.
Now a 32, 35-year-old is considered being older or high risk. Now they gotta have a different care, which again is not a bad thing, because of course, as we get older, things do happen. But our mothers or birthing individuals, are they getting the care that they need to prevent, again, the maternal mortality rate from going up, or even maternal death? Like, some of these things are preventable. It could simply be a question, I'm bleeding out. There's just so many different, like you would have mentioned about low birth weight, these different things that are also risk factors for maternal mortality rate. I have one more question to ask, I will say. Because sometimes we talk about community birth workers, we talk about partners, but let's talk about the importance of involving our men and the communities in maternal health initiatives, like the need for maybe ongoing programs, or how we can get the men involved as well, because everything sometimes always comes on the woman. Let's be honest here.
True.
We're not gonna lie about that. Like, it's what it is. Sure. How important it is for us to have men being involved, even the community, from a maternal health standpoint, so we can help to reduce and just lower the rate when it comes to maternal mortality.
I love that question, because it really is a team effort, right? When it comes to the family, right? The family unit. With my clients, I always try to encourage dad to be involved, come to classes, come with her, pay attention, invest as much as she's investing in this. You're equally responsible for the pregnancy and the baby. You're at the now and after. So take a little bit of accountability and get your feet wet, get your hands dirty, get involved. I feel like a lot of, and I'm thinking of personal experience with my clients, they value when their partner is deeply involved. They feel supported, they feel heard. And if he's not involved, how can he advocate for her in the birth? Know what to ask if he doesn't know what her preferences and her wishes are. At the end of the day, we're not in the headspace in active labor to, have these lengthy conversations if the need arises. So partners need to step up. Partners need to be embedded in that process as much as possible. I will say too, on the other side of that, there is a common theme that I'm starting to notice, that they've withdrawn themselves from the pregnancy. Like, oh, I don't have to do anything until the baby's here, right? And I'm starting to notice that, well, the only time they're really chiming in is when mom is expressing something that she doesn't want to do or wants to do. For example, mom wants to deliver outside of the hospital. All of a sudden, dad has this big opinion about why she shouldn't do that and how unsafe it is and bop, bop, bop. Like, oh, hi. There you are. Where were you? Right? Like, when we were having all these other conversations, A, where were you? B, do you trust this woman? Do you trust her? Yeah, I trust her. Why are you not trusting her intuition on what it's telling her? You guys are on the same team. You want to protect that baby too. I get it. Listen to her. Start practicing listening and having these conversations. Having men involved in this work. I'm not saying get ready to catch a baby, or I'm not saying go become a doula, but backing their women up. There is nothing hotter than a dude backing his woman up and be like, yeah, hyping his girl. I love it. I love to see it. My husband does it to me sometimes. And sometimes he's like, oh my gosh, hiding when I'm getting too much and too crunk. He's like, I can't, so embarrassed. But there's so much value in like feeding into the power that women have and how much we bring to the
Mhm.
table. That support and that physical active support and active involvement can make such a difference in the choices that the community makes.
Well, whew, that was a word. That was a word. What a way to wrap an episode up. And ultimately, I think, improving access to healthcare is key if we really want to reduce the maternal mortality rates here, outside of policy, because, there's a lot of policy that's been going around. Some are being banned, some aren't even being passed, some aren't even being accepted. You know what? We have to come from like a policy standpoint because there really is no one size fit all, really and truly, when it comes to, I feel like when it comes to addressing maternal mortality. I could be wrong, that's just my opinion. There's no one size fit all, but we just know we need to get it done. And there are actions that we can take from like a federal or local level, like have trust in even community
Mm-hmm.
organizations that are working towards reducing the maternal mortality rate to ensure that people have the
Mm-hmm.
resources that they need. A mom should not have to choose. Like we have a saying from a nonprofit, someone should not choose between buying pads or food. A mom shouldn't have to choose between buying food and prenatal care. Like it just doesn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense. They should both be equal. I can afford to buy my food and I can still afford to go to my doctor for my prenatal care.
Yes.
So I think that's something that's something that we ultimately have to really sit and think about when we're in these rooms writing these policies, and what can we do from a government standpoint to ensure that our moms are receiving the care that they deserve.
It works its way down. Like you have to work your way down, right? Like we look at this word maternal
Mm-hmm.
mortality and it's this giant word. Like how do we
Mm-hmm.
reduce maternal mortality? Like it really funnels down to the at the community level. What's
Yeah.
happening in each community? One doctor on Instagram, she said, midwives aren't the answer, but the midwifery care model is. And that's what the midwifery care model stands on, community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm here for midwifery care model. That it's important. And I want to say to you guys listening, after listening to me and Giana talk for almost an hour, because we can talk, honey, okay? We will probably be here until tomorrow, but we got to cut it down. But from a personal level, taking care of your own health before becoming pregnant is key, is essential. Like I would have mentioned, I say I am priming my body. Some may think, oh, Tanya's crazy. No, I got to make sure I'm eating right, I'm working out, I'm educating myself. I'm doing all these different things so that if, again, I'm getting up there in age, unfortunately. But even outside of that, you just want to make sure age. I'm not going to say age doesn't necessarily play a factor, but there's so many other health issues that can happen to someone, whether you're 19, whether you're 45. So if you know that you're someone who wants to be a mother, you start priming your body, start taking care of your health. Don't wait until you find out you're pregnant to start, oh, let me eat healthy. Granted, that's not a bad thing either. But, let's make the process a little bit easier. Like, help them help you. Because, we're advocating for you.
Right.
We want you to get the help and the resources, but help them help you. So definitely make sure that you are taking care of yourself. Make sure that you know what resources are there for you, whether it's from a health insurance standpoint. I can have a midwife versus having a OB-GYN. I don't have to have an OB-GYN. I can have a midwife if I want to, like know all these different things, find out if there's any free childbirth education classes, if it's something that's not in your budget. Because again, we know people charging XYZ, which is fine. But again, there's always an option that fits your budget or where you are in life. Make sure you know where you can get your prenatal care. If you're someone living in a rural area where you have to drive 2 towns over, think about, do I have transportation? How long is it going to take on the bus? What am I going to do to ensure that I'm getting these different cares that I need
Right.
for pregnancy? And don't be afraid to ask questions. Because sometimes for me, I go to the doctor and I'll say scared, but because I know in the back of my mind that, okay, they only want to hear 15 minutes. Like the other day I went somewhere and they're telling me, oh, we did X, Y, Z. And I'm like, when did you do this? Because I was sitting in the room, but when did these things happen?
Right.
Like, make it make sense here. When did you do that?
Mhm.
Because that's how fast sometimes they move. And just through learning and through working in this field, I realized I had to ask my doctor XYZ. She got to go see another patient. She can go and come back and come see me because I'm not going to leave until I get my questions answered. Because at the end of the day, you're paying your money. You're not paying for a particular time. They didn't tell you, oh, the appointment is going to last 15 minutes. I've never been told that.
That part.
If I'm going in for a specific issue, I want for us to get it rectified.
100.
These are different. So just don't be afraid to be an advocate for yourself,
Absolutely.
That's where we are. Thank you for joining us in the tea tasting room. I hope you guys learned something. This can be a conversation that can happen on and on and on because there's so much John packed. But in the interest of time and just giving you a little bit, we're just gonna start here. Who knows? We may have a part 2 to this later down in the year, so we can really dive into even some numbers and you just never know. Maybe we have somebody from CDC join me and Giana. Who knows? But definitely,
Also, I do want to add, if anybody needs like tangibility, like anything tangible to help, add to their resource, I'm happy to chat with them. So
yes, and we'll definitely. And let me tell you, she's the resource queen. I'll text her no matter what time it is. I'm kind of happy she's on the similar time zone as me. She's just an hour behind because when she was in California, I'm like, oh my god, it's too early to be texting. Now I don't feel bad because I'm like, okay, it's 8 o'clock. She should be up by now. She's definitely the resource queen. So I'll be sure to put all her information, guys. And don't be afraid to hit her up, hit me up, because again, genuinely, we are here to serve you, and that is our goal because we've seen a lot in our communities, and we're trying to ensure that we do the best that we can to help to make sure that you are getting the care that you need. But before we go, tell them where they can find you. They'll be in the show notes, but tell them where they can find you in case they don't want to read.
Yeah. So website is giananataliav.com and Instagram handle. It's simply GNV at IG, and I'm totally fine with DMs and emails. You can email through there too.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.